Okay, welcome everyone to the Inner Sydney Voice CAFS learning series. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the land that we're all joining from. I'm joining from the unceded land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I want to pay my respects to First Nations people, past, present, and emerging, um, acknowledging that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. And also, it's NAIDOC week this week, as I said as well. So 50 years of Deadly is quite a milestone. Um, and yeah, just want to pay my respects. Um, Inner Sydney Voice, for anyone joining that doesn't know us, is the regional social development peak organisation for Central, Eastern, and Inner West regions of Sydney. Um, our work centres on supporting, representing, and enabling a strong, diverse, and recognised community services sector. This CAFS learning series is a specific program that we have. This occurs monthly for anyone new or joining for the first time. It's designed for communities and family services funded organisations. In the session today, I suspect that we won't have people outside of CAFS. Sometimes we do, but given the sort of reporting topic, I suppose we're unlikely to, but we do welcome anyone else who finds the content useful to their work and community. And like I've mentioned, this session is being recorded and we'll upload it to our YouTube. So far, we've covered things like demonstrating impact, working with First Nations children and families in the region, community engagement strategies, and worker wellbeing, amongst other topics. A few little housekeeping notes is, like I said, put your camera on if you'd like to. Keep yourself on mute unless you're asking a question, and we will encourage questions. And to do that, Lisa might instruct you whether she's okay to be interrupted or to do it at the end, but use the hand function or come off mute, ask your question in the chat, whatever works for your technology. Um, Today, the session, as you know, is about DEX reporting. We've had Lisa facilitate before, and she's so wonderful. And I think whether there are 50 people in the room or whether there's five, people always leave having got something out of it. And she's known as the DEX therapist sector. Um, we know that reporting isn't always prioritized, and there's good reason for that. People are busy delivering services. But we also know that often people feel like their outputs don't tell the story of their work as much as they'd like it to. And we've heard from DCJ too that people do really well with satisfaction scoring, but beyond that, lots of kind of support is needed in the sector and um, to report well. So Lisa has had 25 years of experience in the sector or across sectors, frontline and strategic management. We're really happy that she's joining us today. She's done a lot of works on DEX in particular and reporting. She might talk about some of that as well. So I will stop talking now and hand over to Lisa. Um, and we'll get started. And I'll just keep an eye too on the waiting room and keep managing the tech issues on the side. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Lisa.
Thank, thanks, Lana. What a wonderful introduction. You really talked me up. But I better actually deliver, hey? So my name is Lisa Smajlov. I'm the manager of support for FAMS. I probably know most of you, but if there are new faces, please, I'm pleased to be in the room with you, in the Zoom room. So whilst the subject today is DEX and practical skills, and actually this data can be used across other programs as well, the way in which you interpret data. So hopefully this may be a touch point for not just for your DCJ funded programs, but also for other ones as well. So I'm just also going to begin by acknowledging country. My favorite place in the world is to be is by the water and the sea, and the sand and the water, and especially being NAIDOC Week, 50 years deadly, as Layla mentioned, it really is sort of a moment to really reflect on how many ways in which we do reset ourselves. And also remember all the people that come before us in this space, 50 years working alongside Indigenous communities. There's obviously a lot more eons that they've been looking after our planet for us. So key dates to begin with, like most important dates. Our due date for the DEX reporting is for 30th of July. So we are now on the lovely beginning of July. So you would have had your January to March quarter in potentially, and but the hard close is 30th of July. So you can go back into your January to March data and actually update that information as well. So that's just a hot tip. It wasn't a hard close in March or in April. It's a hard close for June. So you've got that 6 months worth of data to potentially clean up and look smick. So I guess starting point is, why do we look at the DEX information, or why does DCJ and yourself may want to look at it? So it's about looking at your service delivery, identifying those gaps and emerging needs, and looking at your partners you may want to work with if you do identify a gap, and we communicate the impact to your team, not just and to the stakeholders in your management committee or levels up, but the people on the front line who are doing the doing. I say my role is to help you do the doing and reduce the admin load. That's my key goal. And also you can use the data within DEX as evidence. Like, with Treasury, you need evidence to see the impact of the work that's being done in early intervention, and they really don't get it until they see some concrete data. They're data nerds. Most people in the sector are people nerds. They want to make people move through their life to come to this organization, seek support, and then move forward. But we need to capture how we make that change. Okay. So hopefully I'm just going to refresh people on the new outlet conventions. So you should have had the new outlets were created as part of the new CAFS TEI transition. So that you're going to have your contract number at the beginning of it with the organization and the location. It's back-end work for DCJ to go and find all those different weird, wonderful names that they had. They can now just drill down through the con number. So hopefully, maybe have a show of hands. Has everyone done their outlet update? Show of hands or nods? Thumbs up. Okay. If you haven't, reach out to our DEX clinic or go into the DEX guidelines, which can send through with this pack. And then, okay, so another quick refresher is the different types of clients are sitting within DEX. You've got your identified clients, where they've got minimum data set and they've given permission for their data to be included in DEX. You've got your de-identified clients who said, no, I don't want my data to be identified in DEX land, and you've got your unidentified data. Okay, so they're the three ones that you can think about. And there's an example there of the practice examples. A counselling session with a child, you will include the child. If it's a counselling session without them, but the child plays the toy separately, then they don't. So it's only when the child's meant to be included in the discussions or spoken with, or worker conducts a home visit, but the child is not there, that you don't. This is the more intensive work. So in depending on what stream you, so you've got the safety, wellbeing, and community strengthening. There is acknowledgement in the community strengthening stream that you mostly will have unidentified clients. So what does minimum data set mean, and why is it important? So minimum data set is the expectation from DCJ to get some demographic information for your clients, but there are some cheats around it. So, for example, here you've got the given name, family name, date of birth, gender. Ancestry is a new label that's indexed as well. And then whether they're Indigenous or not, or whether they have a disability or they identify with a disability. So if, for example, you're working with a group of people, and some organizations have done this just for a data perspective, instead of having their date of birth, you can have the estimated year of birth. Instead of their address, you can have their suburb. And that will give you a minimum data set that will give you some identified information for clients then to be assessed up through the score process. Only identified clients can be assessed in individual ways, apart from in the community activities. You can do an assessment through score for them. But if you want to actually identify the track and changes when they move through your organization, you need a little bit of a minimum data set. And just a flag as well, it's about capturing information that does not lead to disrapport. I was talking to an organisation earlier this week, and they've been asked to work and deliver love bites in a school, and they've been in discussions with the school wanting the minimum data set for young people. And the school saying, nope, we're not going to give it to them. So they've actually said well, we can't deliver love bites unless you give us information. And I explained to them, no, you can actually still deliver the project, that program, but just have unidentified clients, because it's about building this rapport. You've broken down that school communication because you've they believe DCJ had to have that information. It's not. It's actually they would like you to have it and you can ask for that. But if you're getting a no, still deliver the program. Don't not deliver it because there's expectation that you can't get their minimum data set, their ages and information. I really want to flag that it's about making sure that you have ways in which you're engaging that's going to be meaningful and supporting the community and the data being a stop to that. That's really not what DCG wants to see. And I just want to flag any questions there on that?
Yeah, so how minimum would the data be then, given that, as you're saying, that I
Yeah,
guess the feeling is that DCJ is looking for data,
yeah,
and so you're saying, don't let that be a barrier, and you don't want the rapport breakdown. But I
yeah,
guess there is a great deal of information that's being sought, so I would
yeah.
imagine that it's a kind of a struggle to balance that.
So the minimum data is the year of birth. So it's estimated date of birth. You click that and it becomes just the year of birth. The suburb, male, female, or gender. That's minimum data set.
Okay,
If you also you can see they're indigenous. You can add some of the extended data if they're homeless or risk of homeless. That's after. And I often say too, you may be working with a group of people in a situation where over time you built rapport with them, and then you'd say to someone in that group, "Would you mind being one of our identified clients? Because you've been coming here for so long. We really love you being here, but we really want to track how you being in our organization has shifted you in certain goals or circumstances." So there's a soft way to approach it after a period of time. You're not going to do it straight away, like turning up to an activity or a group and say, "Can you fill out this form for us? Because we really need it for DCJ." It's about building rapport over time and sort of selecting the ones in which you think you may be able to see they've actually changed. And you can do a retrospective score. You can say, "Do you remember the first day you came in here, you came to our group activity? How do you feel about these three questions, goal, circumstance, one, whether your mental health, whether your sense of belonging, what that was, and how do you feel today?" Do it retrospectively as well. So just as part of your practice, not just hard data purpose, but actually part of your reflection of how do you feel about coming here and how's it really changed for you in your life and your sense of, community. Does that make
that's
sense?
nice. And can I just ask, so on this page, so I'm new to Inner Sydney Voice. I haven't worked with this data set before. Is there a difference? You've got some with a single red asterisk and some pieces with a double black asterisk. What?
So the red ones are the minimum data set. So
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay,
yeah,
beg your pardon. That was
yeah.
what you just said.
Yes. But the pure to get so it's called a statistical list linkage key. It's a data point that's sitting within the back of the DEX portal, which de-identifies the client. So the SLK needs to have at a minimum the first name, last name, if you have it, a year of birth and gender and suburb. That will get you through to the next screen. Make sense? Yay. That's my hot tip. Okay, so this is just a breakdown of the expectation for the data within the different sort of service delivery. So we've got safety and community strengthening. Expectation is 25% clients to be de-identified, so identified. Within the stream, that's within the first bucket, so community engagement, Indigenous support, community engagement, Indigenous information advice referral, special participation, 25%. Because, some people have 1,000 people that are going to come through their DEX portal. You only get potentially, and it's a goal. It's not mandatory, it's a goal for DCJ to reach 25%. If you're working in advocacy and support, education and skills and employment pathways, the goal is 50%. Are you with me? Yep. Family connect and support service types, they're meant to be 100% because they're doing intensive work. The recognition is that you're working in the community strength and you're not doing such intense work. You probably are because you're the front line, the universal entry point, but the expectation is that not to get that data. But when you come into the next levels, the expectation is 100, but it may not always be 100 either. For example, in the wellbeing and safety service types, where it's education and skills, you may be running that Love Bites course. You're not going to get those young people minimum data set. So it's a lower expectation. Again, it's a goal to get that. But you would say if you're doing counselling, you're going to work potentially in family capacity building and say mentoring and peer support and some of those specialist support, you are going to be building rapport over time and you're going to get that minimum data set. And I'm going to show you why it's actually useful to get the minimum data set for your organization in the next slide. Do you have any questions around this bit here? Because this is what sometimes some CPOs push really hard. You must have this much people. You need to get your numbers up. But it's a goal. You're doing your best. We've got some service types where you're not actually going to get that because it's a lighter touch and build rapport over time. Make sense? I'm getting a couple of nods. I'm very happy about that. Okay, so this is the score. So score is a lovely thing that the DCJ has, and people are kind of resistant to it. And when I was a frontline worker, I could not see the point of it because our data went to a big black hole. We never got access to it again. So this is why when you do a score, I say it's a check-in. You check in to see, as I said before, how their involvement with the organization has changed their life circumstances or their goals or their feeling of connection. That's what score is for me, in its essence. You can track that change, and then you've got evidence of the work you're doing, and that makes you understand the purpose of what you're doing, and it gives value to the people on the front line who never see nothing's really changing for them. We're on that sort of that hamster wheel. People come in and out, we don't really see the change, but this gives opportunity to come back and reflect on that change. Okay, and an example I had here is you've got family capacity building as an outcome, as a service type, and you're meant to be looking at family functioning, improving that, right? So how do you actually review that family functioning is working? So maybe you might do a check-in that there's less conflict within the family. But another question you can ask is around their mental health. Do they feel like they're better able to cope with their children's or their own emotional regulation? Another way to ask that question that is meaningful to the client to reflect on, but for you to see the purpose of the work you're doing. Does that make sense? This outcomes tool is something that DCJ has developed, and the link is there to go in. You can create within there, ask questions on what service delivery you're doing, and they've got some examples of questions. So I just want to sort of populate that here. I'm going to send these slides out so you can jump on the links. But I'm not going to go in it today. What I want to reflect on now is the DEX reports, which is where you really find the DEX is making it work for you. So can I just get a show of hands? Who's actually got into DEX reports and had a look at the partnership reports in the room? Anyone? I got some newbies. Yay. This is often where I see the light bulbs go off of, oh, that's why I've got to ask that question. Oh my God, okay, now I will go back and reflect on the intake form, the registration process, and why I'm going to do these surveys. That is my hope after this little section here. So in your DEX reports, you need to always make sure you've got partnership reports, and that's in your managed outlet. So there's a guideline that I'll send through to walk you through. So when you next go into DEX, what you could actually do if you've got DEX open or you want to open it now, we can play along with me. So if anyone wants to jump into their DEX now, you can play along on the back of this. I've got screenshots of what you're going to be looking at. Okay. Anyone going to jump in? No. All good. Okay. So once you get into your DEX reports, and I've taken screenshots, and I should actually flag that Brett Martin from DCJ has been running DEX files. Has anyone heard about his DEX files? Yeah, a few. Yep. Okay. They're actually a really good online. He's been doing it for a number of weeks now. And each webinar is a different topic. So I'll send you the link to that as well because they're only like 30 minutes long and they do take and unpack a lot of information. But they've been really useful. So I actually grabbed some of his content. So I shouldn't have said stolen. I'm actually acknowledging it's some of his work. But he's done it really simply doing in this space. Okay, so he's got here. I think he did a good job, so that's a good thing. So in your program activity is overview of client numbers. So that's your table 2. You know your table 2 you've got from DCJ with all your service types, the numbers you're meant to be getting. That's where you actually check how you're tracking in that space. So it's your activity type, your service type, and the month. And then the other sheet that's next is the attendances per month, and also your cases, sessions, and attendees. So there's 2 main ways in which you look at your data index to begin with. Okay. The biggest tip I can give you is use your filters and use your bookmarks index. So your filters are your search function within the DEX like data. So some organizations have like 20 outlets or more. multiple service types, multiple locations. So you're using your filters to drill down into the content that you really want to look at and that you actually got responsibility for. So within the filters page, you've got the green select button, you've got the X, red X to get out of it. And also within filters, you've actually got a double click on a filter. So the filter is the search type. And I'll show you in a second what that means. But also create bookmarks is the key. It's because otherwise you've got to keep going back in and refiltering, re-navigating. Go to your bookmark and you've got exactly what you want to look at, whether it's your supported play group, whether it's your group activities, they're all sitting in the one bookmark. What I've done here is I've actually done an example of what it looks like to see when I work with organizations, I often help them identify what's actually happening in it. So this is an organization where I noticed that the cases in, say, is family capacity building, there's 16 cases, which means in theory, 16 families they're working with. So sorry, it's really small. I kind of kept it de-identified a little bit. So, so what you can see, there's 16 families. There's within the 16 families, there's 24 individuals that have been working with in that period of time. Those 24 individuals have come 99 times, so quite a lot of times. On average, they're coming 4.1. It's an average 4.1 times. Some of those clients may have come 20 times, some may have come 2. So on average, so when you talk to your funding body about your capacity, you look at this data as it's your capacity. So they might be saying, so an organization I know had like 240 family capacity building in their program. It's huge numbers in a 12-month period. They're not going to get through 240. We were able to argue that 240 was actually the number of attendances across the year. So there was a miscommunication in the contract. So it was actually, 40 clients and 240 times they were coming. Does that make sense? So you can use your data as evidence with your discussion with your CPOs and to negotiate those numbers. This is your evidence. So if you think you've got high numbers in whatever service type delivery, use your evidence. Like don't. Sometimes it was creative DEX accounting where you'd actually try and make those numbers work. No, use it as your actual evidence of the capacity as an organization to deliver on that contract. Am I making sense?
You are making sense, Lisa, but I'm just wondering whether you can come back. You made the comment before when you were a frontline worker and you felt a bit disconnected from this data and it's just a challenge.
Yep.
Like I'm interested in how, because I imagine that maybe that these reports are done nearer to the time of reporting and then it's a bit of a hassle and it's managers doing it, or is it an ongoing thing and you could perhaps get together in teams and look at this data together and engage with it more? Like what's your experience in terms of how organizations are using this?
So it depends on the size of the organization and the
Yep.
resource. So some people just have one person doing all the DEX work. So the other workers send all the information to put into DEX.
Yep.
Others are doing it on like a weekly or monthly basis. So at the end of the week, they may sit down and spend an hour of the day and doing the DEX.
Yep.
Others will do it at the end of the reporting period. What I'm trying to build is you also want to build in some succession planning. So if one person do your DEX is not a great idea because once they leave, that knowledge is gone and they have to restart all over again.
Yeah.
It just depends on the organizations and what they want. What I think works really well is when the whole team is involved in the understanding DEX. But you can bring these reports to your team meeting so they can actually see what they've been delivering and what change they've actually been creating. So with DEX in particular, what we have an Amplify Our Sector project, that's where I think it's a secret sauce has actually happened. So those organizations that were doing Amplify have really become data DEX experts. And they're actually an organization I was working with sent me an email yesterday that they've actually used the Amplify the documentation for that and taken it to their other programs outside of DCJ. So they're getting their teams every quarter using the template to then drill down into the work they're doing and whether it's DSS funded or health funded. So
they've kind of built in that love of the data as well among themselves.
And they've seen the impact the data has
by buying in,
giving it back to whether it's the teams that they're doing the frontline work or whether it's the management and the board. Like once you get unfortunately, our sector, we're people, right? We come into the
Yeah,
sector not because we love data and we want to sit in front of a computer. We want to work with and have those conversations that we find meaningful that will bring about change
yeah,
and connect people. But it, my hope is that I can connect the dots of data to the people. I often say when we do work in this space, I see the data points, they see the faces of the people that they've been working with. When
yeah,
I say I'll go to the next slide, the demographics, they remember that person that came in and what change they had for them.
yeah. So to amplify our sector, sorry for my, I'm just asking all my silly questions. What's amplify our sector? Will other people already know that?
Yeah, so it's a project we did over 2 years. There's resources on our website. I'll send them through to it part of this year, but
Yeah.
it's something that we're also looking at doing another version of it towards the end of this year as well. So keep your eye out for that.
Okay. That
Bit of a
sounds great.
tease, a bit of a tease.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
That's okay. The other thing I wanted really try and encourage people to think about is referrals. Referrals captured in DEX are so important to understanding the ecosystem of supporting care that you if you're not tracking the referrals, I don't know, it's another data point you've got to collect in your intake form and what's the purpose? This is why that purpose is here. So when they come into your service or your different activity you're doing with them, there's a referral reason in. So where they came from. Was it from your community? Was it a self-referral? Was it from a school? Was it from health? Once you see that information index, you can actually see where you've got that really partnership work that you're doing. And you've got that where people are actually recommending you to be a organization of of preference sense. Also within the case, you can see the reasons for seeking assistance. There's a primary reason, there's a secondary reason. Some people only just do the primary and one secondary. I'm saying do all the secondaries. They're coming in for maybe they're coming in for a community event, but they need some help with material aid. They need some help with housing. They need some help with Centrelink. All those reasons, track that within your DEX as well, because that shows you the complexity of the client situation that you're working with. We haven't got the data index, we haven't got the evidence of the complexity because some people see in a neighborhood center, you're doing like coffees and teas, you may do like a social activity. Not a lot of work's really being done there. But if you track it within the DEX, they will see the complexity that you're doing in that space. And then when you are working with someone in an engagement space, if you've done a referral to housing, if you've done a referral to Centrelink, if you've actually gone with them to Centrelink, put that in your DEX as well. Am I making sense? So it can be a lot of work, but if you have really good record systems, it's actually quite quick to do as well. And it helps you reflect on how you're actually working as a team as well. Okay. So there's internal links to it. So here's the example of an organization that has collected some of this data. So, and also not. So the first lot is where they came through. So, and I think they came mainly through internals and through a health agency. You see that? Yeah. So that's showing how connected they are to those two, that they've got really good community profile, because it's self one, but also they're really connected to the health agency as well. So that's actually quite nice to show the evidence to DCJ, Um, the reason they came into was primary reason was family functioning there, as you can see, but personal and family safety was actually the secondary one. And mainly they were doing primary reason, and they started to do secondary reasons as well. So that's why I always say do all the secondaries. So why they came in for family functioning, they needed help with housing, of course. They needed help with mental health. So track all those things within this space. And I'm also trying to encourage the sector, if someone's coming to you and they've had family domestic violence in their life circumstances, they may be coming to for housing, but the primary reason they're coming to for housing is because of their personal and family safety. I'm trying to get the complexity of the work that's being done, because we know as frontline workers in this space and early intervention, a lot of the work you're doing is around family safety, but we're not tracking it because it may come through as family functioning or housing or not tracked at all. So if we start tracking it, we've got evidence. That is my hot tip. And so this organization didn't do any internal or external referrals, so they weren't capturing that they came in for family support, but then they referred them out to mental health, or they referred them out to a DV service. So try and tracking that internal and external. some organizations have, different teams, and you can track that internal referral process as well. So as an internal team, you can actually go, where do the internal referrals come from and go to? Are we talking to each other? How are we referring? Am I losing people? Too much data? Hopefully not. Okay. Okay, what else is actually really good with Index is when you do collect if they're Indigenous person, if they've got coal background, if they've got disability, and in the flag for Dex is psychiatric, like no one's it's not a diagnosis of psychiatric disorder. Do they have mental health? Do they have anxiety? Are they depressed? Put that wording in your intake form or registration form, and then just tick the box that says psychiatric index because that just builds on what's actually happening for the client. You could also look at the housing delivery. So if they're homeless or not, a risk of homelessness, trying to capture that, the household composition and as well. So if they're single parents, like a lot of times in this space, we're not working with single parents, but if we aren't identifying them as sole parents, you may then later on work out, oh, we might do a program just for sole parents or for their children, so they feel like they're connected. Because in some communities, sole parents are very isolated, and so are their children. So you might bring them together to have some kind of work, some connection and some support as well. And then so that's so without the information and text, you can't pull these reports out. Here's a lovely example of what it looks like. I prepared earlier, another organization did. So this one it's only a small data set. It's only 41 clients, but you can see they actually captured the Indigenous component as well. They had some coal, so it's quite a that's a universal space. Different communities are coming through this organization. What they weren't collecting was not so much a disability. And then just to flag, on the other side is you've got the ages too. You can actually track the ages that you're working with, whether you're working with lots of boys and girls. An organization I work with, they recognized after doing the Amplify project, they were working with a lot of boys that were teenagers, but they weren't getting much engagement with girls. So then they changed what the delivery that they were doing. They created a program just for girls. So you can use your DEX data to actually identify the gaps of your service and opportunities that may come through understanding that data. And here you can see they're working with a lot of children in this space. So the highest cohort is children that are 5 to 9. So what would they might want to do with that cohort as well? How they can provide more support. Again, I'm really trying to encourage people to use their DEX as the evidence of the work that they're doing to then move forward and to then negotiate with the CPOs or apply for funding. Use this as your evidence. Any questions on this bit? Any questions? Nope. So this one also is similar. So the household composition, knowing that they're sole parents, but which is why I flagged they were sole parents, but they had a few that are unknown. There was a few that had risk of homelessness at risk. And so then you might think, are you connected maybe to a refuge, or are you working closely with housing to get those clients more support? If you can show this to housing contact, it will help them understand that you could be the pathway through to get to be housed and to be safe. Because without housing, a lot of our clients don't have a lot of opportunity to actually move forward. And especially in our environment. The bottom one here is a service setting. So you can actually say how and which you are working with them. So they're doing a lot of online work and telephone, but they're also coming to the organization and also going to the client's home as well. So your service setting is your meter of your resources as an organization. If you're going to a client's home, or it's travel time has to be included, especially in remote rural. So you can actually factor that into your numbers as well. You're not able to meet as many numbers, but you're doing more intense work. That's a way in which to have that discussion, the CPOs. And the profile here, that's attendance profile. That's when you set up your case. It was unknown in here, but normally this family capacity building, I know. So it was because in their CRM, it defaulted to unknown. So when I work with organizations, I look at the CRMs or the process in which they actually collect the information and just do some little tweaks there as well. Because in this space, it should always be family. Okay. So the love we mentioned before of score. So there are the different ways in which score is captured in DEX. So that just to remind people for the score to pair, I'm being a bit detailed now, so I do apologize for the people who over 747 over their head, but we'll come back to that. So you have a case index, then you have a service engagement as a service type, and then you have, so for the score to pair, the case outlet and the service type need to be the same. What also needs to be the same is the way in which you actually do that assessment. So I'll come back to that in a minute. But within score, you can see there's pre-score and a paired score. And then you also got individual scores. So you should go into find a client and actually see all their engagements over time and see how their scores have changed, which is interesting as well. Because, people come in and out of their life circumstances being okay or not so okay. So with Amplify, we're able to track someone's individual way in which they came through the organization and over time see the dips and the highs. And then the data story then became a quality story because then the conversation was around what was happening for them in those dips and troughs. So you can actually analyze that. Okay, so I'm going to go quickly into what it does look like. So you've got in this organization here, there was 41 clients, but only 9 of those clients were assessed, and 8 were partially assessed. And I'll show you why in a second. What they were scoring on was circumstances and goals. And you can see there's a shift. It's a very slight shift because in this space, capacity building, you're not going to solve their situation, their conflict, or what's happening for them in 6-month or 12-month period. It's just not going to happen. But over time, it may show that expectation. Okay. Then we're going to drill down into what the next screen within DEX is, what the different, this is when the intake and assessment was still happening. So they were doing counselling, which was actually the wrong service entry. So it was actually should have been family capacity building. Look, then they were doing intake and assessment. That intake and assessment is now gone from CAFS. So you can see here there's 24 clients sitting within family capacity building. They were coming a number of 4.1 sessions, which refers to the earlier data. And they move from early score a 1.5 to a 2.4. So in this space, family capacity, you can see most of these clients are feeling really their circumstances are very difficult. That's why they feel scoring quite low. And that's absolutely fine to have low scores because you really want to have an honest conversation with your clients in this space. You don't want it to be 4s and 5s because that means you're not making any difference. How do you track that change if there's been really high scores? What I did say before is consider the retrospective approach, as I said before in this space, is go back and say when you first came into this activity or service, well, how did you feel? And then how do you feel today? It makes them reflect on the ways in which things have become more positive for them. Instead of just giving someone a survey, how you feel today, let them think about how they felt before. Because it gives them, it's more strength-based as well. There's so many domains within SCORE, so and often when your contract, you're told to work within a certain domain. So maybe within, say, family functioning, it's personal and family safety. If you're working in, say, the more group environment, it's around sense of belonging, community networks. So how do you actually ask those questions? So I normally say no more than 3 to 5 max questions ask your clients, unless you're using the common assessment tool. I'm throwing in something new. The common assessment tool. Has anyone heard of that? Anyone use that here? Common assessment tool? No. Yeah, it's documents that VCJ has done a lot of really good work on. It's when you're working more intensely with clients, it's actually the different domains that they're maybe experiencing. It's mental health, family functioning, personal conflict. There's like a document where you can ask questions and track it. They also get to keep that document so they can take it to another organization instead of repeating the story again. They can take their CAT tool with them as well. So it's actually quite useful if you're doing intense work. So in this example here, we've got they're checking in under, again, I say score is a check-in under age appropriate development, community networks, family functioning, and personal and family safety. So they're asking 4 questions there. And they're also asking a question around in the domain, the circumstances and the goals. So changed there. So I think what they did was they changed skills one was probably in the wrong section. I would think that. So in this space here, I would have probably added mental health as a domain to check in on, because I think in this space mental health and loneliness is one of those things that across all service types in CAFS. And if we can start tracking that sense of belonging in mental health, that really does show the impact of the work that you're doing. And I said, even that was a small change, especially in personal and family safety, that they went from 1.9 to 3 on average, the earliest and latest score, that actually does show that the impact of the work that you are doing in the space. Are there any questions about this slide?
Can I ask one, Lisa? I'm wondering
Yep.
if you could elaborate on the suggestion that DCJ made that people do quite well at scores and maybe less well across other domains in DEX, and whether that's your experience, why you think that might be, anything that would be useful for kind of people to take
Yeah,
from
I think
that comment.
I think when the scores came in, people didn't really understand the domains to like check in on. I can't say check in on those domains. Like you've been given the domain for, as I said, family functioning, but you can actually check in under the mental health or community network. So, maybe you're running a play group, either community or support a play group, and the sense of belonging is a question that wouldn't be part of family functioning. But if they're coming to a play group, meeting friends, their children are playing with others, that is a sense of belonging question that you can actually capture and track. I think that I've been doing this for 4 years, and I can see the trends in data, and I can see the ways in which people light up when they see that change. And I think that's what it's about, is actually those little data bulbs going off. I want those bulbs to be all across New South Wales, so people see DEX as not their friend, but as something they can use to really showcase what they do. Because most people don't go into the DEX reports. Most people collect data. The organisation was collecting, I think, like 20 questions for a score in a supported play group and all the different domains. I was like, that's admin time. And the client also being asked that multiple times. What a way to build this rapport, especially with the young people. I had a conversation with a youth worker when they first get like, here's a survey for you to fill out. Yeah, wait, can't wait. By the time you give it to them like 4, 5, 6 times later, they're going to throw it back at you. I'm not going to do that. So it's about choosing the way in which you ask those questions, making it fun for them, whether it's in a youth environment, throwing ping pong balls into a jar, doing it those ways where it's actually a bit more fun for them, as opposed to, oh, here's another survey I've got to fill out, and they just tick a box and they don't really engage properly with it. Yeah. Try and make it as meaningful as possible. That is my hot tip. Okay. And then there's community scores as well. That's where you haven't got individual data, minimum data set, but you've got a community who's come to an activity, you're checking those elements around belonging, education and skills, that they learn something, that sort of thing. And here's an example of that. Also within your DEX, there's actually a data check, a quality data check. You can actually see where you've got missing information for the minimum data set. You can actually go back and find that client and edit that detail as well. That's why I'm saying the reporting period is really uh, April to June. You can go back to your January to June for those clients if you want to, or just start afresh in the new financial year. Start from fresh for July and reset. Okay. Okay. Time for questions. I hope I haven't bombarded you too much. It's a lot of information. I hope it was useful. But hit me with your questions. I know there's one question that came through part of the registration. I'm happy to talk to that if you want. Start with that later, and then we'll open up.
Yeah, do you need me to get it up or have you got it there?
Yeah, it was how long to keep records for children.
Yeah.
Yes, 7 years. That is the requirement. Yeah. It's not actually outlined in the specs, but it is through the child safe standards.
Yeah, I was really
which are now part of our contract specs. Refer to that.
I was really interested in the registrations. We wanted to leave a space for burning questions, but most people tended to say no, they just wanted to maybe see what they didn't know or they didn't know what they didn't know, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I don't know whether that's the case or whether people were just trying to pick up on any tips.
Yeah. Hopefully
Yeah,
I've shared some insight and it might be helpful going forward. Any questions? How is everyone with their decks? Like, have you started entering your data? Have you had any issues with your decks? Like, if you're getting authority on decks is really difficult at times. Who's actually, as I said, no one's gone into the DEX report. So maybe for another session, we can actually have a plug and play where you jump into your DEX reports after the reporting period.
I
We can
think
all
that
play
would
together.
be, I think that would be great. And it sounds like we could have sessions too on sort of everything that goes around the DEX reporting. And I might flag here for anyone that's interested in another group. Lisa, you've been involved in the Demonstrating Impact COP that we've been running,
Yes,
the
yes.
peer network session. Yeah. So we're trying to kind of do more in the impact and data space in general. DEX is obviously a really specific and tangible ways that
Yeah,
skills need to be built, but picking up on some of the conversation and some of the comments about how do we support clients, how do we not burden groups that are already sort of where data is over collected on them,
yeah,
all of those other kind of
yeah,
considerations that come
yeah.
about with collecting evidence and evaluation.
Okay.
We're also running some other groups related to that. So if anyone's interested in that, please let me know as
Yeah.
well.
And I should flag too, like there's in the specs for DCJ CAFS is you are expected to ask the questions around minimum data set, but the client always can say no. And that's valid as well, because the clients in this space, they have been challenged by DCJ or by other authorities, and you're meant to be the early intervention, the way in which they can find out and get support. You don't want to burden them with the expectation you're going to their engagement with the organization is going to go straight back to DCJ or the docs workers, often this referred to as docs, because some people in this space have had docs involvement and they're very and with great, respect, they fear what you may tell them, but within the DEX DCJ in this portal space, there's no DCJ where you can see that client's engagement. It's that's the statistical linkage he does. It de-identifies them, so they can't. There's no fear there. So with this hesitation, I had a conversation. You explain to them that you become a little data dot point in the cloud of Dexland, and no one can see the engagement that you're actually having with them one on one. They
Mm.
can't be identified.
I've put a survey in the chat if everyone would please fill that out, especially an easier way to give your feedback than coming off mute now. It's anonymous and you can let us know
Yeah,
how the session went and if you have any other questions.
yeah,
I'm going to, for anyone that's watching this via recording, I will try and get the survey link in the description. So let us know if you're watching the recording and you've got questions, or give us your feedback if you're watching the recording as well.
yeah.
There's a question here from Charlie. I don't know if you can see that, Lisa. I'll read it out. Hi, Lisa. I don't use DEX in my role, but was tuning in out of interest to understand the value of data and what is not reported. Sense of belonging, positive mental health, and relationship development are truly important outcomes not often reported.
Yes, and that's what I'm trying to encourage is that we capture the work that we're doing in this space. We are doing the work, we're just not capturing it. So if we start having those conversations around, and the common assessment tool, I'll send those links through. So I'll send you the common assessment tool, this presentation. But also please, we've got DEX clinics at FAM, so it's one-on-one coaching or with your team. The lovely Fiona does that. So I'll send that link as well. So please, it's free, like take advantage of it.
Definitely. Well,
And
thank
thanks, Charlie. I
you.
appreciate that. Yeah, it is important. Yeah, we don't capture that information, and that's why the value isn't actually being considered in budget and budgets that come down the line. Yeah.
Mm.
So we do have an election campaign coming up as well. So elections next year. So watch the FAM space for that, because we are going to ask you to be part of our campaign.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa, for the presentation. I hope that people find value out of it. I certainly have. I still have a lot to learn when it comes to DEX. Um, really appreciate your work and thank you for navigating those technical difficulties with us this
No.
morning.
I'm gonna throw the resources up too that I've linked
Fantastic.
into, and then also a thank you. So if my details are there too if you want to contact me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lisa. And we've finished at 10:29, which is
Oh, I've got
perfect.
it.
So
You did it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to be with us.
have a
It's been a
great
great
day,
week.
everyone. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.